The NBA playoffs officially here. We're obviously so very excited for it because, well, we're an NBA podcast, so we should be. But seriously, it is a fun time. You could feel it in the air the last few weeks. The games in general, the intensity has definitely picked up, which is always great to see and always fun to watch. Obviously, so. Before we get into the actual playoffs, let's jump back and talk a little bit about the play-in tournament as our warm up. Just to recap, the Pelicans beat the Spurs and then they beat the Clippers. So now they will be going up against the Suns. Minnesota beat the Clippers, and that means they move on to play the Grizzlies in round one. Atlanta beat Charlotte and then Cleveland. That means they get the Heat round one. Brooklyn beat Cleveland. So that means they get the Celtics. That's where everybody kind of lines up now. Um, I guess, are there any like biggest surprises of those play-in games to you?
No, it kind of played out. I mean, first off, the play-in is just great. I mean, there's no way around
Yeah.
it. It was really fun, largely. Um, I mean, the only game that it just didn't really feel close was that Brooklyn Cleveland game at first. That final score was probably closer than it indicated, but
Yeah.
the Pelicans Clippers game was great. Again, both of them fighting for their playoff lives. The Hawks Cavs game was great as well. A lot of fun. And I think that's exactly what you want to see if you're the NBA. You want to, you see what those games meant. Obviously, everybody was talking about Minnesota celebrating last week. I thought it was ridiculous that Timberwolves
Yeah.
fans got as much crap as they did. I mean, it's a
Uh,
franchise that so they won one playoff series since 2004, Justin. They won with
I
Jimmy
know.
Butler, and that was it. This is the first time it feels like they've taken a leap. Like, look, I get it. It's just a spot in the regular playoffs. Like, it is a one-game play-in tournament. But come on, give Minnesota fans
It
a break. Like, they haven't had any fun realistically. Like, we're talking their last deep playoff run was with Kevin Garnett in 2004. Like, they
I
deserve to celebrate a little bit.
I get what you're saying, but it gave off college fans storming the court unnecessarily at that point. You know what I mean? Like I get what you're saying because they haven't had much to celebrate, but it was like, bro, you're like okay, cool. Like good, you're getting into the playoffs. I'm excited for you, but let's calm down a little bit.
I like the emotional investment, and that's kind of what that's what it feels like we've gotten more out of Minnesota with this year. And we'll talk Minnesota with them against Memphis a little bit, but it just feels like the culture has shifted. It feels like
Yeah.
guys like aren't afraid of the moment. Like we've always talked about Minnesota's had these guys with all this potential, and this finally felt like they're coming out party. So I think that that's, again, we'll talk Minnesota in depth a little more, but I don't mind it as much. Obviously, Patrick Beverly against the Clippers, but look, it's a little bit of revenge. It's his old squad. I get it. But I think that people really, really were going to town and dunking on those fans when it's like, no, you know what? Let them celebrate. They deserve to have that. They haven't had that here for a little bit.
I think
Um,
the only real thing that I took away from okay, there's like two headlines that I kind of took away from the play-in tournament is wow, CJ McCollum was exactly what the Pelicans needed,
yeah,
or at least it feels that way. And then the other one is Brooklyn won, but that game kind of made me feel like I don't think they're getting past Boston.
yeah, and we'll.
So yeah,
Oh, and again, we'll preview that in a little
yeah,
bit because I understand exactly your thinking there. Focusing on the teams that are eliminated. I mean, both tens got knocked out in Charlotte and San Antonio. I think the big question for San Antonio is Popovich going to keep coaching? I think he is going to stick around for another year or two. We know he broke the NBA's all-time win
hmm
records this year. And he could retire whenever he wants. It's Pop. Like he has
yeah,
nothing left to prove at this point. Dude's on the Mount Rushmore of coaching, but I kind of feel like he's been almost invigorated a little bit by getting to coach a young team again. By getting to see Deontay Murray kind of leap into stardom here a little bit. Some of the other younger guys there as well. So that'll be interesting. But I don't think he's, it'll be on his terms, obviously. But I don't think he's in an imminent retirement or anything like that.
yeah.
And for Charlotte, a little bit disappointing, obviously. You loved what you saw out of LaMelo Ball, Miles Bridges this year. They've got a couple of questions to answer. Apparently, Gordon Hayward wants out, which feels kind of hilarious given that, he just hasn't really, he hasn't been able to play more or less. I mean, he played one game for the Hornets down the stretch, wasn't
Pretty
anywhere to be
much.
found in the play-in.
Yeah,
Um, and then, Montrezl Harrell apparently seems a little, via his post-game comments, a little unsatisfied as well. But, in the case of Trez, look, this would be your fourth team in 4 years. He can't really defend anyone. And that's kind of where the problem is. This is like, look, I know he's unsatisfied with his role, and this is a guy who, was a contender for a couple of years there, year in and year out for sixth man of the year. But I think maybe some adjustments need to be made, or just as unfortunate as it is, that may be the reality there now.
Well, and it's one of those things where like and maybe you don't see it, and I don't think we necessarily have to go for these players, but as a team, again, selfishly, because I know the Sixers are going to need to be looking at some depth moves in the offseason. It's like I see this and I'm like, ooh, somebody's dissatisfied. We might be able to get them on the cheap. You know what I mean? Like that's what I see now when I see players talking about how they're upset or they want out of a situation. I'm like, okay, put them on the list of potential cheap options.
I'm not going to go into depth about why I absolutely hate everything you just said in those past two sentences when it comes to the Sixers. We don't need to focus on that. We'll keep it with the play-in teams. When it comes to Cleveland, I think that it's just, and you could feel it within the fan base that it was just a
Yeah,
disappointing end given where they were.
yeah,
But I do think some greater context, and again, a couple of days after, because they lose a heartbreaker to Atlanta, 107 to 101.
yeah.
A game for which they were up large portions of it. But again, I think you need to just look at what happened with Cleveland. And the reality is they just ran out of gas. They dealt with so many injuries all season long. I mean, Darius Garland missed over 20 games. Evan Mobley missed time at the end of the year. I mean, hell, give a ton of credit for Jared Allen for coming
Yeah.
back and battling through that finger sprain and playing in that play-in game. He looked great seeing him back in the lineup. He obviously missed a ton of time in the last month of the season. Rondo missed time after they brought him over. Ricky Rubio, who was playing great for them at the beginning of the year, got
Yep.
hurt and then was out for the year and ended up getting traded. Obviously, Colin Sexton didn't play at all, and it was good to hear from him again, saying that he is, because he's a guy that given the contract situation and given the emergence of some players, has been mentioned as a trade piece, to put it
Hmm.
bluntly. I mean, Colin Sexton's a good young player. I still think he would bring a lot of value back, but
I agree.
he doubled down and said, pretty publicly, this is where he wants to be. He wants to be a part of it. And while it's a disappointing end for sure for Cleveland, who I think, looking to get back into the regular playoffs for the first time since LeBron James, they were up at, I think they were as high as 2 or 3 at one point. But
Hmm.
I think you just also need to look ahead and go, our future looks great. Evan
Yeah.
Mobley's a stud already. Darius Garland looks like a stud. You have a ton of great role players there that complement them.
Just
They're going to
don't
be
just the worry, the counter to that is we saw it with the Knicks last year, and then look at what they did this year. Like they've definitely
yeah.
faltered compared. So there is a bit of a cautionary tale there, but I agree. I think what Cleveland has and the young talent that they have, it's going to be awesome going forward. And like you said, I mean, we kind of referenced it in previous episodes. Is them losing a play-in tournament kind of really is a massive downfall to where they were at the middle of the season. Really,
Yeah, I think it's way more sustainable too than the Knicks or some of these other
I
squads.
agree.
Like I
Yeah,
think a lot of these young guys are just going to get better. It wasn't necessarily guys just playing,
yeah,
and I feel saying they're playing above their grade feels disrespectful, but it's just like they maxed on everything more or less, and you just wondered if they could continue to play at that
agreed.
level. I do think Cleveland should be back. Like I feel pretty confident about that, and about a lot of their guys going forward. The other 8 seed that got eliminated, of course, is the Clippers, and the Clippers just got thrown the last minute curveball when Paul
Yep,
George got COVID and had to be out. So that obviously, I did think the Clippers were going to win that game. I
I
think
did
if Paul
too.
George is playing in that game, the Clippers probably win that game on their home floor. And I mean, give the Pelicans all the credit in the world. Like you said, what a turnaround for them. Bringing CJ McCollum in,
Hmm.
the job that Willie Green has done as a first year coach, Brandon Ingram continuing to step up and just look like a major piece going forward. Jonas Valanciunas had a great season. Herb Jones, being an awesome rookie for them. It looks like they have a lot going for them. And I think to me, the biggest thing you need to do is kind of just quiet the Zion noise. And I think they did that. Like New Orleans genuinely has a basketball team that they can be really proud of, that now here is going into the real playoffs when they looked absolutely dead in the water at the beginning of the season. And I mean, look, Zion's throwing down 360s in practice. Like, I'm not saying I still think he's got a long way to go. I don't think
Hmm.
he's going to play this year, nor should he. But it's like, imagine that lineup with Zion Williamson in it. Again, we got to see him stay healthy, but all of a sudden it looks like, and especially if you're Zion, it's like imagine you're that lineup with you in it. It's like
Yeah,
you
chill.
talk about
Yeah,
playing meaningful, winning basketball. If you add Zion to this lineup the way they're playing right now, it sure looks like they can be doing that sooner than
and
later.
And, I think obviously from the Zion stuff, I think it was his dad or his uncle, somebody did come out saying that the Pelicans and him, again, disagree on where he is on the rehab side of things. He thinks he's ready to play. The Pelicans don't want to do that. Um, I kind of agree with the Pelicans approach. It's like, what's the point? No offense to Pelicans fans, but I mean, like, you are going up against the Suns now, who are definitely the best team in the league. So do you really like, I get you're in the playoffs and playoff experience and you're going to make a push here or at least try to. But if we're being realistic, I don't think there are many scenarios or many people out there arguing that the Pelicans get past this round.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. And again, we'll preview that in a
Yeah.
little bit, but I think it's going to be rather
That's
quick if you catch my drift.
and that's what I
Um,
wanted to ask you out of what is it? Pelicans, Minnesota, Atlanta, Brooklyn. Who do you think if you had to pick one, yeah, say one to go the furthest? Like, who do you think goes the furthest? Does anybody get into the next round?
Brooklyn, they have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. I'm
Yeah,
going to take those two every time over
yeah.
anybody else. I think that Minnesota is the clear second choice here.
Well, because they got the first win already.
I think it's probably Minnesota, Atlanta, and then New Orleans is my dead last. Credit to New Orleans for turning around. I think they're getting swept. We'll
Well, and it's
preview it
not
a
even
little.
yeah, and it's not even it's just because it's the Suns. Like, it's a
Yeah,
matter
it's
of
more about
matchup.
Phoenix than it is about New
Yeah,
Orleans to me.
yeah, I agree.
In terms of the Clippers, I think it's tough because I think Clippers fans are going to be disappointed. Obviously, not just for making the playoffs, but when you go out and you get Kawhi Leonard and you get Paul George, you have this expectation of being in the finals
Mhm.
or contending every single year. And the reality is from the beginning of the year, because you knew you weren't going to have Kawhi Leonard, is that you weren't going to actually contend. Now, I think getting Paul George back and seeing the high level that he was playing at, you still want to go on that run because I think
Right,
it solidifies your belief. And the fact that they didn't make the playoffs is definitely a hard pill to swallow, but it's like that was your depth out there, more or less. Like, your depth got you an 8 seed. You have Ty Lue, who's a great coach, and you should, in theory, be adding Kawhi Leonard back to the lineup, a fully
right.
healthy Paul George back up to the lineup next year. So again, with their age, I think, and their contract situation, I think any year that is kind of feels like a throwaway year for the Clippers is disappointing. So I do understand that. But I also think if you look at the bright side, like, there's no reason why they shouldn't be contending to win this whole thing next year.
Right. I think at least my last thoughts on in general and storylines with the teams that are in the play-in or got past the play-in tournament. I think the only other thing that really we haven't hit is Atlanta, Clint Capella getting hurt,
Yeah.
which will obviously be a problem for them going forward. Clint Capella was a big part of that. Again, we will preview that in a little bit. And John Collins potentially working a way back, but you look at that, then you're like, all right, do you rush him back and then maybe re-injure? Because it feels like it's been all season. He's been dealing with like sprains and stuff. He just can't get
Yeah.
healthy. So that's a big part of it too, going forward against the Heat, who are number one seed in the East. So, you know, it isn't the greatest, but we will, I guess, I just don't want to have another situation like we had with Durant, where they rush him back from an injury and then we see an even worse injury. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, it's a tough balance. It's a tough balance of erring on the side of caution and long
Right.
term, and when it's worth risking it for the short term. It's
And as I feel like it's the most cliche sports thing to say, sometimes you have to protect the players from themselves.
yeah,
And I
absolutely.
get that, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Welcome everybody to the Driving Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rayfuse. Joining me as always, my co-host Justin Kuzar.
Happy Easter, 2K and chill. Catch me on my stream.
All right, who we got streaming today? Because
Terrence Ross.
oh, Terrence. Okay, T Ross.
Yeah.
Shout out to the T Ross podcast as well. My boy Joe is over there.
Oh yeah.
So they're
I'm trying to
probably
see what he's literally live on Twitch right now. I'm trying to see what game. Oh, they're gonna make me watch. Oh, he's playing 2K. Playing
Oh,
2K.
okay. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously the Magic season over there for a little bit. Yeah, Terrence Ross has been involved in a ton of the video games down here. He's been trying to get into streaming
Yep.
a little bit more. So,
I like
I mean,
it.
like a lot of the NBA guys are now. So there is, pretty much a crossover there, if you will. Yeah, happy Easter, happy Passover, happy Ramadan to everybody celebrating. It's that weird
Mhm.
try convergence of religious holidays all at once. It doesn't happen. I know they're all around the same time generally, but it doesn't quite match up on the same weekend as that.
The
So
the amount of sugar that my body has consumed the past few days is outrageous. A ton of Starburst jelly beans because they are number one Easter candy of all time.
they
Like,
are.
don't
That's
even,
you will
yeah,
get no argument with me there.
we're
I
not even
completely agree,
right.
Justin.
And then my wife and I, celebrating our 1 year anniversary, had to eat 1-year-old wedding cake, which surprisingly wasn't bad. Like, I thought it was going to be horrible, and it wasn't that bad.
How do you preserve that? Like, what's because I know people do
Yeah.
that. That's a wedding thing. And congrats to you and Nicole, by the
Thank
way.
you. Thank you.
But what do you like? Did you like vacuum seal it or what?
No, we literally, so, after our wedding, they took the top of the cake, which is like the smaller part, obviously.
Right.
We wrapped it in like saran wrap, like pretty tight, and then put a bunch of tinfoil over it, and then put it in the back of the freezer and forgot about it until yesterday.
All right. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
And I'm glad for your experience that you're not sick or with anything. So that's
Wow.
good.
Yeah. You know,
Hopefully. Knock on wood.
it's one of those things. My stomach is always a little finicky, so we never know what's what.
So
But
let's add 1 year cake to it. Why not?
yeah, exactly. That's like, and it was one of those things. Like, we were going to meet some friends out. My wife's friend's band was playing at one of the bars, so we're like, oh, we'll go there for a few drinks and stuff like that. So we ate the wedding cake, and then she's like, all right, let's go. And I'm like, this is leaving a window for problems.
Yeah. It's like, do we
Because,
have
well, not even
to?
that. It's just like, what if we are at the bar and stuff's going down? I don't necessarily want to be using a bar bathroom for that
Yeah.
situation
No.
without getting too graphic.
Not remotely. Bro, we're 30 years old. Like, come on. I don't need to be doing anything in a bar bathroom like that anymore.
Yeah, nothing worse. There's nothing. Okay, I feel like bar is worse, but having to use the bathroom in that situation,
Mhm.
in a bar situation, might be equally as bad to having to use the bathroom in that situation at like an NBA game, like at a stadium or it might be just as bad.
Yeah, I'm
I don't know
inclined
which
to
one's worse.
I'm gonna say bar, and I'm pretty confident about
Yeah.
bar, and the only reason I have for that is I didn't so it wasn't that situation, but I went to the bathroom at when I went to the game in San Antonio. I
Oh,
saw caught a game a Spurs game against the Trailblazers like 4 or 5 years ago.
I remember
Dude, it
that.
was incredible. Shout out to their staff, man. It was the cleanest bathroom in the world. Like, that was
Yeah.
if you wanna talk about impressive, like, give that janitor staff a raise, man. They deserve it.
I love going to all the concerts that my wife wants to go to, like the Jonas Brothers and Justin Bieber, because the male bathroom is just empty. There's nobody in there.
It's like your own private palace.
It literally is. I take a video every
There's
single
somebody
time. I'm
playing the
like,
harp in there, just chilling, like it's a complete Zen garden.
I'm the only one in there. So, but you do run into a situation where the women realize that. So then they start using the male bathroom, and then you're
Oh
in
no,
there and you're like, oh,
no,
I feel
ladies,
awkward
no,
now.
out,
Yeah.
out, get out. Nope.
So either way.
Anyway, leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Spotify, tune in. Anything that was on a pod, anywhere you can find a podcast, you can
Yeah.
find us. Is what I'm trying to say.
And obviously, we put a video version of this on YouTube now. We put a little extra content up there from time to time. We do a lot of pack rips now for NBA Top Shot because I've fully dove into that addiction, and it's fun. Obviously, there's a video element to it, so if you want to check those out, Driving Dish NBA on YouTube. I think we're looking for subscriber number 36, so you could be number 36, and we would appreciate it.
Yeah, look, ladies, go if it's a co-ed bathroom, I don't care. But I'm just saying, I don't want drunk Bieber fans going to the men's bathroom. I know what's happening there. They're way into it more than we are. It's just that don't destroy our area of solace. And now a word from our sponsors. All right, so we obviously this is an NBA playoff episode podcast. We got the first round coming up, next level basketball, and you can get in on the first round action with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. This week, new customers can bet $5 on any team to win and get $150 in free bets instantly. All DraftKings Sportsbook customers can also bet on NBA hoops with same game parlays. Plus, each day of first round, you can get a risk-free bet up to $10 if your same day game parlay doesn't hit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the promo code DISHERS. Like, that's what you guys are, fans, you're dishers.
Hmm.
I feel like they used to be Dishes at one point, but Dishers sounds better. Come on.
Hmm.
Dishers. And you can bet $5 on any NBA team to win their game during the first round of the playoffs and get $150 in free bets instantly. I mean, seriously, like 5 into 150. Are you kidding me? That's the best math of all time. Use the promo code Dishers at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. I mean, come on, let's do a first round. You got a lot of options. Like, you got more games than ever.
Dude, just take that. What is that? It's $5 to win $150 in free bets. Dude, put $5 on the Suns. It's
Right.
like a no doubter.
That's what I mean. Like, there's certain teams you feel good. Like, it's going to come off as disrespectful, but like, bet on the Bucks over the Bulls. They're
Yeah,
probably going to beat the Bulls in 4 games. So,
yeah.
again, turn
I don't.
5 into 150.
I'm a big fan of the same game parlays. Like, just pick the team you think's going to win, and then pick. If you're doing the Bucks, pick the Bucks to win, and then find Giannis's over under for points in the game, and probably go over because he's going to go off and make an impact. And then there you go. So, obviously a lot of fun, and we appreciate we appreciate DraftKings for getting on board with us.
Yeah, so again, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use the promo code Dishers. Win $105 on any team to win. Get $150 in free bets instantly. This is for all new customers, so
Yep.
sign up and get it going.
Yep, free app. Obviously, just download it. I went through the process of getting on the app. It's super easy. You just create your account. It does make you take a picture of your license so that they can make sure you are who you're saying you are, because there's age requirements and all that. But then once you're in, you're good to go. So you might as well take advantage of the chance to turn $5 into $150.
Yeah,
With a
you
pretty
use
simple,
our
easy bet.
wisdom or something like that to take home your coins.
Yeah, and then
Or
obviously if
just
you
bait us on every bet. If you think we're complete clowns, just bait us on all of them.
and then obviously if you get it, we want to hear about the success. So hit us up on social media. We would love to know that that happened for you.
Yeah, use those promo code Dishers. But let's get into it. First round is well underway at this point. Full disclosure, we are recording this on Easter Sunday. So a couple of series have started already.
Mhm.
But Justin and I put our first round picks on Twitter yesterday. So I'm just going to run them down real quick, and then you can
Okay.
run down yours before we get into the series. We're going to start over here in the West. So I have Phoenix in 4. I had Memphis in. Oh, crap! I got to pull them up now. I'm forgetting. I think I had Memphis in 6, but I want to make sure it's 6 and not 5.
Here, I got mine right here. I'll run through them real
All
quick.
right, yeah. What you got?
You want to start in the West? So
Yeah, let's do West.
Phoenix in 4. I've got Memphis in 6. Jazz in 7, but I hedged that a little bit, saying if Luka is
Right.
playing or able to get on the court, I kind of changed my opinion. And I've also got Golden State in 6.
Okay, so
Yeah, go ahead.
and then so for me, I got Phoenix in 4, Memphis in 5. That one's
Mhm.
not aging well already. I have Dallas in 7, and then I have Golden State in 6 as well, like you. So we'll come back to the East here a little bit later after
Which
balling
one?
and falling.
Well, hold on. Which one out of those that you put down? I mean, I know now because we already know at least a few of the games have played yesterday. But which one are you feeling the least confident in your
Oh,
prediction in?
Memphis. It's not even close. It's Memphis. Oh my
Yeah.
God. I feel horrible about it. So Dallas is interesting. Again, we'll get into Dallas in a little bit. Let's just start at the top of the bracket here with Phoenix and New Orleans. I do think this is going to be a sweep. Again, as great of a turnaround as New Orleans has been, Phoenix undefeated when leading after 3 quarters.
Mhm.
They have that 2014 Spurs vibe to them. Like, they're on a mission. They're the best clutch team in the NBA. They have the best net rating. I just think they're in a different class right now. And I think Phoenix handles their business and moves through this pretty quickly. Again, the arguments for the Pelicans would be, you get a home game, CJ McCollum gets hot, but I don't think Phoenix really has. I don't really think they break a sweat. Like, that sounds ridiculous. I don't have a ton of analysis on this series because compared to some of the others, because I think it's going to be over quickly.
I also, and again, we referenced this earlier. I also don't. I know it would be cool to see Zion. I don't want to see Zion. Like, just don't rush him back if he's not healthy. I know he
No.
wants back and he's adding pressure, but I think there's also value. I don't know if the word's value, but I think there is precedent to be set where Zion last time he kind of came out, made noise, was vocally upset, whether it was him or a family member. And then the next day they're like, oh, Zion's doing some drills and taking some contact now. And so if he comes out again and complains or is upset, and then you move him closer or you put him in the game, you've started this vibe of Zion vocally makes his opinion known, you cave. He does it again, you cave. So now you're starting this idea of if Zion says something, then you're going to change your opinion or you're going to do something for him. And I think there is a level of, from a team's perspective, you can't do that.
No, and with him, it's a lot more long term. Like
Yes.
people are going to compare it to the Ben Simmons situation with bringing somebody back, but I think they're just completely different.
Hmm.
Ben Simmons has played meaningful basketball way more recently. I don't know. Again, I mean, the back injury has clearly been severe enough to keep him out since the trade deadline. So I don't want to downplay that. Like back injuries, obviously, are a big deal and some of the toughest to recover from. But there's not the history of injury concern with Ben Simmons. Like if Ben Simmons is fully healed, you kind of trust his ability to be back on the court. Like he's largely been pretty durable. The only time he really missed was his rookie year, and that was just that freak foot break. Like he just landed
Yeah.
on, I forget it. It might have been like Jair Smith's foot at practice or something like that, and just broke it. Like that's just such a weird injury.
Hmm.
Where Zion, like, yeah, it is one of these things where it's way more chronic at this point. And so you don't want to rush him back.
Yeah. And so, that's just my opinion on that. I'd rather at this point wait to see him next year and have a full year go at it. And, instead of being an eighth seed, hopefully you're a 4 or a 5 and thoroughly in the playoffs and gonna make a really cool run. Is I just don't want him to play against Phoenix and them lose anyway and him get re-injured or elongate the situation or the problem that's going on.
I will say for what it's worth, like because it sounds like I'm not really giving the Pelicans any credit, which I guess you're not if I have them being swept. Like I do think the Pelicans are going to push the Suns. I don't think that, especially, I mean, the Suns haven't necessarily been playing their most meaningful basketball here over the last stretch of the season. Like
Sure.
they've pretty much been coasting to be number one. It's been all about more being healthy. Um, but I don't know. They need to get to the line a little more if you're Phoenix, and they need to be a little better at rebounding. Something that maybe the Pelicans can take advantage of here.
See, I think not to move on from Phoenix and the Pelicans, I think that's exactly what we saw in game 1 of Memphis versus the Timberwolves. You had the Timberwolves coming off a hot play-in win. They're
Yeah,
amped up. They feel like the underdogs. They come in against Memphis, who pretty much has had the number 2 spot solidified for a little bit here. And Timberwolves come in hot, and that's why we saw what we saw in game 1, in my opinion. And it's funny because it's two teams that don't necessarily like each other. They're both young, and like we referenced earlier, they're both young and they like to be vocal and chest pump, and they're very animated. For two teams who essentially, it's like in the past, I get why the fan base is excited, but we haven't seen much success from these guys in a while. So it's awesome to see them there, but they're very vocal for a team that hasn't been there for a while.
no, well, they're just young and they're not afraid of anybody, and
Yeah,
that's why you got to love it. Like on both accounts. Minnesota a little bit older in terms of some of the vets that are in there, but
sure,
Memphis has them too with Steven Adams. Yeah, no, this series is going to be a lot of fun if the first game was any indication. And I mean, yeah, you got to give Minnesota a lot of credit. They
of course.
came out and punched Memphis in the mouth,
Mhm.
like in the way that a lot of teams have gotten punched in the mouth by Memphis this year. That's kind of been their identity. It feels weird for Anthony Edwards because we're talking about a number 1 overall pick, but it sure does feel like yesterday was Anthony Edwards' coming out party where it
Of
was
course.
like, oh, yeah, we're here now. I mean, the kid is 20 years old. We're talking about a guy that can't even legally drink in the US at this point. What an effort from him. Because, I mean, he was the star of the play-in game, too, against the Clippers. Like, I mean, if you look at that box score from the play-in game and you had told me Karl Anthony Towns was going to score 11 points and they were going to beat the Clippers and get in and win that game, I don't know. I don't know if I'd have believed it. But give credit to him the way that he stepped up in both of these games so far. And give credit to Karl Anthony Towns. He bounced back yesterday. He was really strong, exactly who they needed him to be, attacking the interior, aggressive, engaged on the defensive end. And because they kind of covered up, D'Angelo Russell wasn't super great in the first game against Memphis. The Grizz did a good job of slowing him down and getting him uncomfortable. But yeah, what an impressive effort by Minnesota. Jared Vanderbilt was great yesterday, too.
Well, and there's, to the Karl Anthony Towns comment, I mean, he only had 11 points against the Clippers, too. So it's like, it's one of those things, not saying that he's not rising to the occasion, but it's like,
No,
is
he
the
needed
moment.
that bounce back yesterday.
Yes, yeah, that's what I mean. So it's like, you were worried about that. And so I guess it's good to see the bounce back, but that's kind of the vibe that's been around maybe you could say just the Timberwolves in general, right? Where we always talk about how they haven't necessarily lived up to expectations, or they kind of lose it in the big moments. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't think they're you can say that about them this year, though. And I
No,
mean,
not now.
again, it's the depth that steps up too. Vanderbilt's not a big offensive guy, but the way he crashes the boards and gives Memphis fits there. Malik Beasley giving them 23 points off the bench yesterday. Josh McDaniels was great yesterday with 15 points, 7 boards as well. Like it, but again, it is their star guy stepping up. It's Towns having 29 points, like you
Yep.
said, after having a really lackluster playing game and just dominating the way he should. Anthony Edwards, again, 36 points on 23 shots. Like it was an efficient outing as well from Ant-Man. And that's what, again, you need to see. They shot the ball really well. Almost 40% from 3-point. They're 50% from the field overall. So it just feels like Minnesota controlled the pace of that game, which is something that we're not really used to seeing from Memphis. Memphis is somebody that just they get out and they run with the best of them. John Moran had 32 points yesterday. Dylan Brooks was pretty good, 24 points, 50% from the line. I mean, honestly, it was just some of their other guys that start, like Jaren Jackson Jr. He's got to throw the tape out from that game. I mean, 0-5 from beyond the arc. Only 12 points. It did have 7 blocks, but he was a minus 16 when they were on the floor. He had 5 fouls. I
Yeah,
thought,
he was getting pretty testy there at one point too. I remember the
yeah,
being like he needs to ring that in a little.
Yeah, Towns did a really good job against him. And like you said, getting him flustered and out of his game. And look, here's the thing. Like Memphis now is going to find themselves in a situation that they haven't been in before. Like this is new water for Memphis as well, as good as they've been all year. And as much as, we've seen them move through the play-in games in the past couple of years to play this meaningful basketball. Now
Mhm.
they're on the ropes for the first time. I do think they're going to respond and win game 2. Like I really struggle to see Memphis going down 0-2, but
It'd be
this could
wild.
go the distance. Like I picked Memphis in 5, and I do think
The
Memphis is going to win this series, but Minnesota is good, man, and they're going to push them. Like Minnesota, I think had the number 3 overall rating in the second half of the season. So maybe this shouldn't surprise us as much as it seems to be.
No, but and I would say too with the Timberwolves. I mean, I was super down on them the last episode. I didn't necessarily know what we could see from them. So I'm happy that there are proving me wrong in that. And to the Jaren Jackson Jr. stuff, or in general, Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, they out rebounded the Grizzlies a ton. They had
Yeah.
46 rebounds to 35. So that's kind of a big part of the story there as well. So I kind of agree with you though. I see Memphis bouncing back. I think a big part of, like I said, the Timberwolves story was they're coming in hot, man. They're coming off
Yeah.
a big win. They were amped, like we were talking about. The fans were in it. You're coming in hot to a Memphis team that, not saying they were coasting, but they necessarily had the stuff locked in for a while there. And so
Yeah, and they were fighting too, just not even because
yeah,
I mean they ended up getting 7 and having to play the play-in, but pretty
right.
much until the last couple of games in the season, they were battling with Denver for that last spot to just get the 6 and avoid this in
Right.
general. Though I guess if you're the 6, you get to play Golden State in the first round, who you and I both had Golden
Although
State in 6 anyway.
Although
But
I hesitated on that one for a little bit because I wanted to know Curry's health, and then obviously that doesn't even matter now.
well, how about Curry coming off the bench? I
That's
mean,
what I
that was
mean.
the
You
first
had
time in a while. Like he was pretty. All the indications were that he were going to come back for game 1, so you
yeah,
can't say it was really shocking on that front. But yeah,
no.
for him to come off the bench and to put Jordan Poole in, and I mean, what a way for him to step up. I mean, again, yesterday felt like in
Who
terms of the game ones for a lot of young guys, it was they're coming out. We'll get to Tyrese Maxey in
yeah,
a little bit. We just talked about Anthony Edwards. What
Jordan
a
Poole.
game for
Yeah.
Jordan Poole! 30 points, 9 of 13 just in that starting role being absolutely phenomenal. And I do think, in a way, it took a lot of pressure off. Like, it did take the pressure off Steph Curry. It allowed him to kind of ease back into it a little bit. Steph only played 22 minutes last
I
night.
think he was on a minute restriction for 22. I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure. Yeah.
and so the Warriors, they really were kind of eased into that, which is huge. Clay
Well,
Thompson,
because
great to see him back. His first playoff game, and it's since the finals back in 2019.
well,
19 points for him.
it's just I think the story, obviously Jordan Poole putting down the numbers and almost like a coming out party for the playoffs for him, which is great. But I think a big story of it is with Curry on the minutes restriction. I think there's two angles. One, Curry being a star enough and being like not letting his ego get in the way in a way to trust his teammates, and allow in a way to come off the bench. But also from Jordan Poole's side is playing well enough that it wasn't a close game where maybe Steve Kerr has to make a decision when Curry's at
Right.
22 to be like, "Now we got to keep him in," because there was a point in that game where I looked, I think I only looked because I had put money on it. I had put money on Denver and they were plus 6.5 points. So I thought it was at least going to be close. And there was a point when obviously it wasn't close for most of the game. And then when I looked in the first half, I think Curry had only played 14 minutes and had like 5 points or something like that. And I was like, oh man, if Denver can't win with Curry only having 5 points in 14 minutes, this is a bad sign. And then I saw Jordan Poole was just like, oh yeah, Curry's not going to do it. I'll just do it. It's no big deal.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it's really just the balance that they have with everybody's healthy, and that was the. I mean, the Warriors when they were healthy at the beginning of the season were keeping up with Phoenix. Like they looked every bit of a juggernaut as well.
Yeah.
The talk, of course, is going to be about Steph and Clay and Dre being back together for the first time in a while. But it's not just Jordan Poole; it's what they do on the defensive end as well. Wiggins, for what we talk about his offense, it's his defense as well. And then off the bench, when you bring in guys like Otto Porter, you bring in guys like Gary Payton Jr., or
Hmm.
I guess Gary Payton the second. It's not going to be a situation or it's going to be a situation where they're not brought in for their offensive prowess, but they don't need to be. Like when you're getting that level of offense from those three guys, they just can be in their role, focus on defense. And I think that's what we saw last night. They just overwhelmed Denver, and Denver just looked, again, they didn't have the depth last night. I mean, outside of Jokic and outside of Will Barton, you didn't really get any offense from anybody. I mean, guys are
Aaron Gordon
struggling
gave
to
you,
get into double
yeah,
digits. So
Aaron Gordon gave you 8 points and 5 rebounds in 26 minutes.
yeah, which
You
again,
know?
I think Aaron Gordon, realistically, this is where the Denver guys are just going to have to play above their capabilities. Like
Hmm.
Aaron Gordon, Monte Morris, Will Barton, guys like that are big reasons why Denver won a bunch of games this year. Why I think Denver, once they get everybody healthy, is still going to be in the mix, and I think can contend here really quick. Like they're in that Clippers boat to me. But the reality is they're just kind of playing out of their depth. Like they're not really meant to be typecast as number 2 and 3 roles, and that's just where we can see Denver obviously missing Jamal Murray and missing Michael Porter Jr., who again, both I don't expect to see either of them come playoffs time. You just it stinks because you don't want to punt a season like this, when Jokic is playing the way he is, when he's having one of the best offensive seasons for a center in NBA history, but
Hmm.
you're just kind of limited. And that's what I think the reality is against now a fully healthy Warriors team.
Yeah, and obviously the 3 point percentage pretty wildly drastically different. I mean, both teams took 35 threes in the game, but the Warriors were shooting 45% and the Nuggets shot 31%. So that's a big differential right there, and that's going to hurt them in the end, obviously, and it did, and that's why it was essentially a blowout. After the second quarter, allowing Golden State to drop essentially over 30 points in 3 quarters on you is not gonna cut it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. They're not going to be able to keep up that way.
Mhm.
So the last series in the West is Dallas and Utah, the 4-5 matchup. And again, this is just intriguing because Luka Doncic got hurt in the last game of the season
Yeah.
with his calf strain, knocked him out for game one. And so, I mean, game one for me was a must win for Utah. They did take care of business and they're up.
Especially if
Albeit,
Luka's out. If
well,
Luka's out, you gotta win that.
you have to win with
Yeah.
Luke out. And I think Utah has to win this series, in my opinion, if you have any faith in this
Because
roster going forward with Luka out and limited.
if
Um,
Luka's I was thinking about this. If Luka's out, Utah has at least the next 2 best players on the court, right?
oh,
At
yeah, for
least.
sure. At least.
So, you gotta do that, and I mean, that's why I think that'll be a big arguing point if they do lose. I mean, I don't we'll have to see what happens with Luka going forward and all that, but at least with Luka out on paper, the Jazz are the better team because of the star potential and the star talent.
See, my question is, are they? And that's my question is where because of how Utah's ended. And I guess I'm just so disappointed in how quickly this has blown up because you knew this was going to be their last shot, but this is a spectacular failure right now, in my opinion. I mean, they won that game by 6 points.
Yeah.
Mike Conley hit a couple of buckets late that were huge, but the way that and I know that Donovan Mitchell had 32 points, and I know Bogdanovich was going as well, especially in the
Yep.
first half. So you feed the hot hand, but the way that Rudy Gobert is just completely frozen out of that offense. And I just was watching multiple possessions in the second half of that game where he was wide open, had a mismatch, was calling for the ball, was in the right spot where they can get remotely anything going, and they weren't getting him the ball. That
Mhm.
is, and for it's insane to me because of how well he played on the defensive front yesterday. Like he just completely closed down the paint for Utah, and Dallas couldn't really get anything going on that front. It is not a sustainable offense if they want to win anything to just completely freeze Gobert out of it. It's disrespectful, frankly.
Yeah. Well, and you look at the rebounds, right? In general, I mean, the Utah Jazz just absolutely destroyed Dallas on the rebounds, and Gobert's a big part of that. I mean, he had what, 17 rebounds? Hold on, let me see if I can find it real quick. I think he had, yeah, 17 rebounds. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
17 rebounds and 5 points. It's like, get this guy the ball, let him do something down low.
It's insane to me that Rudy Gobert had one field goal attempt. Like that is when Royce O'Neal has five, when Danielle House Jr. has six, when Jordan Clarkson has seven. Like even Hassan Whiteside, who was coming in for him off the bench, had two field goal attempts. Like that is just it's unfathomable to me if you're Utah. And that's why I guess I'm just even in the win, I can't say I feel great about it. Like it looked
Yeah.
like a slog fest. And with Dallas without Luka, they should have pretty much handled their business having been here before. And I guess that's kind of my thing. If I'm Dallas, like I feel pretty good. We lost by 6 points in a game where we clearly didn't have our best player, where a lot of guys were pretty off largely. I don't know what the hell happened with Spencer Dinwiddie at the free throw line yesterday. Just uncharacteristically. I mean, he missed 6 free throws. Like that's just. I mean, I don't want to put it all on him. I know that's the margin of the game. That
Right.
feels a little unfair and ridiculous. But I mean, if you feel like if I'm Dallas, because they didn't have Tim Hardaway either, I feel like they could have won that game if they had Tim Hardaway in the lineup, let alone Luka Doncic. Like, if I'm Dallas, I take that loss and I feel pretty good about it. As crazy as that sounds, and I go, hey, if we get Luka back, we can beat this team. They're dysfunctional right now. It feels like
Yeah.
even they had their full lineup and only beat us by 6 points. Dallas, the defense was still strong again, holding Utah to just 99 points. So I feel pretty good if I'm Dallas going forward. And again, it just depends on Luka. Like I'm with
Fun.
you. I do think Utah can win this series if Luka doesn't go.
Yeah.
But if Luka's back in any capacity, I think Dallas will win.
Well, and that's the thing is, back to the Gobert thing, you look at it, I mean, Utah had 50 points in the paint compared to Dallas having 36. So why wouldn't you expose that more if
They
it
were
was
going.
working?
Dallas was going small, and they
Yeah.
weren't getting him the ball. Like when
Yeah.
Toronto went small yesterday, the Sixers made a point to feed Joel Embiid and try to beat up on that matchup.
Make
Like
them regret it. Yeah, you
right.
have to.
It doesn't make sense at all, and it's not a sustainable way to go moving forward. All right, who's balling, who's falling? Our NBA version of the stock market. We always like start with the good before we start with the bad. And we're going to stick in the West here right now with Minnesota, kind of fitting off their win yesterday. But shout out to Chris Finch, head coach, getting that extension, staying with Minnesota as their coach here for the next couple
Nice.
of years. Not a whole lot to say on it other than well deserved. I mean, know that we talk about Minnesota's turnaround. Head coach is a big part of that. Shout out to Chris Finch.
Yep. Obviously excited for him. I don't think anything that would happen in the playoffs would change the opinion. So might as well lock him up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, he just done a great job since coming
Mhm.
in. Has them playing well. Allow him to grow as well with the young core that they got there. So you got to consistency is key for these guys, and I think that's important. So good for Minnesota.
Yep, my ball going out to Zach Levine, who breaks the regular season game without a playoff appearance record, active record, I should say. That's 478 regular season games before getting a playoff game. That obviously will change. Buddy Hield now will hold the longest active drought at 468, and I guess we'll see how long it takes for him to break that.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, I guess how quickly does Indy bounce back, or does he get traded?
Rated, yeah.
Obviously in Sacramento, which insert your joke there.
Mhm.
But yeah, good for Zach Levine. Again, meaningful playoff action. They'll be playing against the Bucks later today.
I
So
don't
good for him getting in.
necessarily like, looking forward. That's another one that I was like, you
Oh, they're
probably
getting
could put
swept, bro. I
that
don't even want to. I don't even really want to preview that series.
that
Almost in a
that
way.
that DraftKings bet that we're talking about, that $5 that can turn into
I
$150.
feel
You might
real
want to
good
put it on.
about that one. Yeah, I
Put it
feel
on the
real
box.
good about Milwaukee.
Listen, if we steer you wrong, I'm not sending you $150. I'll apologize though. That's all you
Yeah,
get out of me.
it's a burn the boats bet, if you will.
Yeah.
All All right, fallen for me this week is the Lakers' handling of Frank Vogel. And I guess it's Frank Vogel in general, with Frank Vogel getting fired from the Lakers.
Mhm.
Everyone on earth knew this was coming. Apparently, before Frank Vogel did, because Frank Vogel found out at a press conference from Wojnarowski. And it's just the perfect microcosm of how ridiculous the Lakers have handled everything and how much of a mess the franchise is right now, and how much they got to clean it up, because this was ridiculous. Frank Vogel won you a title 2 seasons ago. He won the title with you as your head coach.
Didn't they
Look,
do that with Lou Williams too, though? Wasn't that the same kind of a deal? Same idea. I know different teams, but wasn't that kind of how Lou went too? Weren't we
wait,
talking
what?
about that?
What are you talking
Not
about?
Lou, Ty Lue. I mean,
Oh, I'm like Lou Williams. I'm
I was
like,
like, wait,
what?
Lou Williams. No, Ty Lue. Didn't that same thing happen in Cleveland essentially?
I don't remember
I gotta
honestly,
look that up.
but they check that out for sure. But yeah, Ty Lue. But if that is how this happened, he deserved better as well. But yeah, with Frank Vogel, I don't think good franchises handle their business like this. Like Frank Vogel, if you want to move on from Frank Vogel, fine. Like I don't think that he was nearly the problem for the Lakers this year. I don't think it's his fault that the roster was just completely, not built for success. I don't think it's his fault that Anthony Davis got hurt, and I don't think it's his fault that Russell Westbrook regressed. Now, I think there are a couple lineup things here and there that you could have maybe, nitpicked Frank Vogel for, but I don't think it does feel like he got scapegoated for it. But if that's the decision you want to make, fine. Like that's just how the NBA works at some points. But this guy won you a title. He's been a good coach for most of his career. Here I thought he kind of got scapegoated a little bit when he got fired from Orlando as well. I don't think that's how you conduct business. And I think Frank Vogel deserved a lot better from the Lakers.
So, sorry, I had it wrong. He was there for, I mean, yeah, kind of the same. So they won his first year in 15-16, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is Ty Lue. Sorry, just to bring it back. He was there 16 and 17. They went 51 and 31. He was there 17 and 18. They went 50 and 32. And then 2018, 2019, I think he was only there for 6 games.
Yeah.
So kind of, I mean, in a similar way, you get the championship and then you get 2 years and then we move on.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's silly. I
Yeah.
think I think you don't coaches that won you championships, especially, deserve a little bit better than that. And I think it's symptomatic of just what's wrong with the Lakers right now. Is they don't it's just a mess. It's a mess.
Yeah. Well, and on top of that, I LeBron came out and said that he thinks Ty Lue is the best NBA coach or one of the best NBA coach. And I know we've talked about it, but I think,
Fact.
but even from that, the dysfunction, the way that it happened with Vogel, like there's got to be a lot of coaches that are like, do I want to go there in this
Why would you
toxic,
want to Yeah.
send Doc Rivers over there? I don't want him.
No, I agree. My bad. And I didn't mean to cut you off there. But yeah, the way the way I wouldn't want to coach this team right now. I mean, yeah, you coach
Yeah.
LeBron, so there is obviously an upside to it. But given the dysfunction there and given the kind of the bleak look at this roster and how much you can navigate in the future, like that might be good right now.
Yeah. So my fallen is you've probably seen this if you've been watching any of the Timberwolves games. It happened in the play-in tournament and it happened again the other night. People are protesting. Direct Action Everywhere is the protest group that's doing this, but they're protesting Glenn Taylor. And so the first fan or the first person glued themselves to the floor, and then the second person chained themselves to the basketball hoop. So I have a lot of questions as to how a chain got into the stadium, but we can get
Right.
past that.
As a fan, I'm concerned about how a chain got into the stadium.
Right. And I think I feel like when I first saw this, it said like arena employee glues their hand to the whatever, but I don't know what my first thought process, like, did you really think the glue was going to stick? Like that has to be like instantly drying glue. And I know it was like Gorilla Glue type stuff, but did you really think that that was going to stick? Like you were going to have enough time for that to dry?
I mean,
What did you think?
apparently. I mean, that stuff does dry pretty fast. I will say that. Like,
Yeah. And it
and when
said,
that Gorilla Glue gets stuck, it's stuck.
I know, but not a hand. I don't know. Like I
Oh
just,
no, your hand would be stuck. Oh yeah,
mm,
no, I know. That's the other part of it where I'm like, fam, you're gorilla gluing your hand. Like, do you know how much that skin's getting ripped off? Like,
yeah.
I'm not trying to be graphic, but like,
Well, but still, so obviously they made their point. The shirts said the same thing. I actually forget the quote of it right now, but it's essentially against Glenn Taylor, who Taylor Farms has a bunch of chickens, and I guess there was a bird flu outbreak. So there is some debate as to how that was handled and if it was the correct way to handle it. So
Gotcha. Okay. So
that's
they're
yeah,
upset about the culling of birds because of bird flu going around, which has been a massive problem. Like genuinely, it's been
yes,
that's why your eggs are expensive. Like
yep.
everything is going up with inflation in America, obviously. But like the one thing that like is specific to bird flu, it's your eggs. Your eggs are
The
going through the roof because of bird
the
flu right now.
the article I was reading didn't explain what happened, but
Didn't
the quote
explain.
the quote, and it's Easter, so it's like doubly great. But the quote from the article that I was reading, and maybe we can do a little deeper dive into this if we really feel like we need to. But it says this is related to a disgusting decision from Taylor's farm, which threatened to kill millions of chickens due to a bird flu outbreak. So
Okay,
yeah, so
I
that's
get it.
yeah. I,
I'm
I
not
get
a
what they're upset
farmer.
about too, but at the same time, like, well, no, I guess that doesn't matter because like Glenn Taylor already kind of is getting rid of it. Like he's out, right? He already sold it, and this is like the end of the season for him. So like this is kind of like the farewell tour in a way. So I'm not like what they did obviously with the chickens or didn't do, depending on how you want to look at it. Like it's obviously not great and inhumane and stuff, but
I am not an agriculture expert, nor am I a bird flu culling expert and how to stop
yeah,
it. So I don't really have an opinion here. Obviously, if it's we don't
right,
support animal cruelty. I
right,
think that goes without saying. I don't think you should be abusing your animals, just like the same way I don't think you should be chaining yourself to a basket
right.
or super gluing your hand to the NBA floor because of this. Like, do it outside the arena. I guess that's my point.
And they might, but here's the
Or
problem. Here's the
like
problem. I mean, from a awareness standpoint, people were talking about it now. We wouldn't have been talking about it if they were outside the arena, you
yeah,
know?
I know, and the other part of me is like, well, if it's a worthy protest, it shouldn't
Right,
matter. Like the whole point of a protest is to make people uncomfortable and to get,
right.
raise awareness for an uncomfortable situation to get
What
people
you're
talking
talking
about
about,
it.
yeah.
But
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't think put it this way, I don't think super gluing your hand is regardless the way that you should protest something. Like I think there are more if you want to disrupt an event, I don't think that's the way you should do it. Like, come on.
If
It's just for
anything, yeah,
yourself too, if
yeah.
anything. Like
Well,
you're gonna hurt yourself.
and like we talked about, is have the ability to have a chain in that arena is a little
Yeah,
concerning as well.
I'm extremely concerned about that, and I think that's something that probably should get looked at a little more.
Yeah.
All right, Eastern Conference now. Let's flip over here. We got the first round matchups going on as well. Again, two games have happened with the Sixers and the Raptors, and which was kind of funny yesterday how they had like the West game split up, and they had the one West game super early. And I know it's in Texas, and so it's Central Time, but how they had the one West game really early. And then they had the kind of the Eastern Conference game in the middle with the Sixers.
I almost got in a lot of trouble with the Sixers game because, like I said, yesterday was my 1 year anniversary of marriage,
Oh,
and so we Nicole, because she works at TPC, she gets a ton of gift cards and stuff like that and tips. So
yep.
we have like almost $300 in gift cards to Ruth Chris. So I was like, why don't we just go there, like have a nice dinner and like
Are
I
you kidding me?
yeah, our bill was like I tipped the guy in cash, which that was still like 40-50 bucks, but still
Yeah,
it
of
was like,
course.
you know what I mean? It's 50 bucks to have essentially a dinner at Ruth Chris. Like you might as well. Um, but when she went to the bathroom, like she left to go to the bathroom. And so I saw an opportunity to open my phone and check the score of the Sixers game.
You weren't happy about that dinner, huh?
She's like, "Are you seriously looking at the game right now?" And I was like, "Well, they were the Sixers are plus 4.5, and I was thinking about putting in some money." And she's like, "You're gambling while we're out on our anniversary dinner." I was like, "No, I'm not. I'm
She's
considering
looking
it,
at
but I
she's looking
didn't
at
do
you
it."
like you want to make it to year two.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Um,
so I would appreciate them to not have the Sixers games around dinner time going forward, but that's okay.
Yeah, and so, but it is kind of funny because there were three West games yesterday, and the Sixers and the Raptors are the only East game that's played. Where the East, it's 3-1. Likewise today, Phoenix and New Orleans
Yeah.
are the only Western Conference game. They're on the later slate. But so again, we're just going to do this by seeding. So we'll start with Miami and Atlanta 1-8. And I got to be honest, like I think Miami is going to win this series. I have them winning in five. I think Atlanta is going to push the hell out of them, though. Like, Atlanta just seems to be getting hot at the right time. And I would maybe argue that Trae Young is the best player on the floor in this entire series.
You think?
He's
I
up
mean,
there,
listen,
man.
he's
It's
definitely
it's
great.
him and like it's him and Jimmy,
Him and
and
Jimmy.
Bam is shortly. Like, Miami has probably the second, third, and fourth best player in this series if they don't have
Probably, yeah.
one. I mean, Bam is way better than everybody else on Atlanta, in my opinion, outside of Trae Young. But I mean, it's just when Trae gets going, man. We saw it in both the play-in games.
Mhm.
Like, we saw it against Charlotte. We saw it against Cleveland. Like, when he just starts hitting, I mean, he put the dagger in him, and he feeds off that. I think he's good enough to steal them a game. I honestly could see this going 6. I think Miami's bench has been really good. That's been their key all year. Obviously, Tyler Hero, the sixth man of the year favorite. Their fourth quarter net rating has been pretty bad the entire year. And that's, to me, if I'm the Hawks, I think that's where the Hawks have been great at closing games. And so I think I feel better in that regard. I also feel like, though, Miami is just going to be able to punish them on the interior. You know, Clint Capella, with the injury, doesn't seem like he's going to play here in the first round. If he does, he's going to be severely limited. You know, John Collins is trying to come back, like you said, but it feels like he's dealt with every injury on the face of earth at this point, at least this season. You know,
Yeah.
Okongwu's been great for them. You know, they've got a bunch of guys who, when they get into rhythm, can light it up fast, with Kevin Huerter, with Danilo Gallinari, with Bogdanovich.
So to that, you know, if Capella's out, if Collins is out, you know, you can't have those two guys who arguably are huge contributors to the offense and defense for those guys. Obviously, you know, Collins has been out, I feel like, since February.
Yeah.
Hasn't played in a little bit, but the counter to that is the Heat are top 10 in offensive and defensive rebound rate. So now you don't have two guys who are a big part of that for the opposing team. So from the Heat side is like they can just eat down low, and
Yeah.
that may be what ends up happening.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at.
Mhm.
That's just kind of what I feel. Again, you may get John Collins back, so he's not out forever, and obviously that would
That's
do a
true.
ton.
And Capella, I thought there was no structural damage to Capella, his
No, but I
knee.
still think
So
he's going to be limited, and I think
yeah.
Okongwu, and you're going to need DeAndre Hunter. You're going to need big minutes out of him, I think, as well.
Mhm.
But I do think that's going to be the difference here. I think Miami's just going to beat them up down low. I think their depth is a little better as well. Like I said, I really like their bench lineups. Jimmy Butler is here, obviously still motivated and on a mission. So I think Miami handles it
Yeah.
relatively quickly. I think they win in 5.
I kind of agree with you from like a sports betting side of things. I'm looking at a website right now that's talking about it. I mean, the Heat are minus 290 on the money line. So really, from a sports betting side, it's probably not worth it to bet on the Heat. I mean, you're not. I mean, what is it? That's 290 to win $100. That's probably
Yeah.
not great. But that means you should put that $5 that we are doing with DraftKings on them, and then get your $150 in free bets instantly. So there you go. We're helping you out with that one. So
Yeah, I think obviously the coaching aspect in that
yes,
series as
well,
well
sure,
too.
yeah.
You know, Spo is so good. Not give credit to Nate McMillan, but I think it hasn't been the love story that it was last year, for
It came
example, when
back
he
down to
took
earth.
over.
That's what it
Yeah.
did. It came back down to
That
earth.
said, them coming back down to earth, they are playing good basketball right now. And again, they're paying. They're going to
Huge
push,
too.
like,
Yeah.
this is not Milwaukee in Chicago, where I think it's just
No.
not even really going to be a contest. Like, this is the Hawks are going to push them. Like, I think this could go to 6. The 2-7 matchup is the best one by far, obviously,
Easily,
in Brooklyn
yeah.
and Boston. I would think, to be quite honest, because of what you said earlier, I don't think Brooklyn is very good defensively.
Yep.
And I think Boston has been the number 1 defense in the league, but their offense has been right there too. If Boston was fully healthy, I actually think they would handle this series and control it pretty well. Now,
Mhm.
if you're Brooklyn, obviously you have the 2 best players on the floor. Arguably, Tatum is right there too. Tatum's not better than Durant, but like Tatum and Kyrie might be a push at this point. And then after that, Boston's depth is better for sure. The big key here is Rob Williams not being here. Rob Williams not being here changes the entire outlook of this series, because they're just, Al Horford and Daniel Tice are both still really good, and they're going to make up for a lot of those minutes, I think. But like, Rob Williams was transcendent on the defensive end this year in the interior. You pair that with Marcus Smart, obviously, who's
And I
the
think
Defensive Player of the Year favorite, and it's just like, that was such a key to that. They're going to miss him, and because of that, I think Boston is more vulnerable now than they probably will be the rest
they
of the way.
will, and that's exactly what I was going to bring up is the biggest chance I think at a team bouncing the Celtics out. I'm not saying it's not doable, and maybe they, where they go out, but they will get significantly harder to beat after the first round if he does come back from that injury, like they're predicting, second round comeback. That would be huge for them. But from like the net side or really any other team that might have to play them and how the bracket kind of phases out would be looking at this and be like, oh, I guess maybe you're not because you don't necessarily want to go up against Durant or Kyrie, but you're looking at it like the Celtics, if you can bounce them, that would be great. So we don't have to deal with them being a lockdown defensive team.
Well, and so this is the seeds debate, and I
Yeah.
do respect that Boston did not run from this. Like, there is something to be said about Boston. They went out
Yeah.
that last game of the season, the regular season, and they beat Memphis by like 40. They played all their starters. They won. Where Milwaukee didn't do that.
Yeah.
Basically, like tanked themselves out at 2 to get to 3. Now, Boston also needed to win because if the Sixers had won 2, which they did, they won the last game of the season against Detroit.
Yeah.
The Sixers could have jumped and got into with a
3.
Boston loss, could have got to 3, and that would have put Boston against Toronto. Which again, the concern there is the vaccination thing. That's just a different element that goes to it.
Yeah.
I do respect Boston for not running from Brooklyn. Like I think Milwaukee would have beaten Brooklyn. And again, I still think Milwaukee is the favorite to win the Eastern Conference. So I'm not saying they're cowards or anything, but it does kind of say something when I'm looking at Milwaukee here, like they're going to sweep the Bulls right now and then can just kind of chill out and stay healthy. Where I think Boston is going to beat Brooklyn in 7 games, but it's going to be a slugfest. And it really is kind of a coin flip. Like Rob Williams is healthy, completely different story. And I still think Boston gets through just because of how good defensively they are overall. Like Brooklyn, the whole pull for Brooklyn is that we're arguing Kevin Durant is going to do it and that Kyrie Irving is going to do it. And here's the thing, they might just be good enough to do that. Like those are that talented.
They
we know
are.
when they get going, they can score with anybody. Seth Curry's another guy who get on the heater. The wild card is Ben Simmons. I think that goes without saying. We have kind of no idea what's going to happen there. They say he's going to practice, but regardless, like game 1 is today. I still don't think we're going to see him in the first round. It
Do you
feels
want
like
to
that would be
be
surprising.
Boston doesn't seem like the team really, and it's probably not going to go be a team going forward, but it doesn't really seem like a situation where you're like, all right, let's try to figure this chemistry out.
They're going to it's going to be like that anyway, though.
Yeah.
That's the thing is it's like Brooklyn to run the Eastern Conference is going to have to beat Boston. They're likely going to have to beat Milwaukee in the second round. And then they're more than likely going to have to beat some combo of Miami or Philly or even Atlanta or Toronto. Like if Atlanta or Toronto get that far, I'm not exactly going to sleep on them at that point either. So this is really intriguing. It's a great series. I do think Brooklyn's going to need big minutes out of Nick Claxton. I think they're going to need him to step up off the bench in a big way. But I don't know.
Sorry.
I feel good. I think I do think Boston has enough depth to win this in 7, and I think they would control it otherwise. But they were just too good down the stretch for me not to have faith in them to win this now.
The 3 series that I think are intriguing to me that I really am excited about and want to watch, like the closest for whatever reason, are Boston and Brooklyn, Sixers and Raptors, and Jazz and Mavericks. Those are the ones that I feel like are the most like toss-up-y vibes right now, just because we don't really know a lot of it, with injuries and not injuries. And I mean, I know with the Sixers, Scotty Barnes just went down too, so like that's another
you got to
part of
throw
it.
Timberwolves and Memphis in there too.
Timberwolves and Memphis now, but originally I was like not convinced there was going to be a thing. But after game 1, I'm like, okay, I'm interested now.
No, I like that matchup. That was always one of the good ones to me. I didn't think Dallas and Utah would be that intriguing just because I didn't think Luka was going to get hurt.
Right, Luka being hurt.
Given how poorly, again, Utah played down the stretch, I think that's the biggest thing there. I think we've said it like 4 times on the podcast. It feels disrespectful to not preview this series with Milwaukee and Chicago, but like I think Milwaukee is going to sweep. Chicago just not having Lonzo Ball is a big deal. And again, I just think it's the attrition with them the way it was with Cleveland. It's like they've had so many guys miss times. Like Patrick Williams is back now, but he hasn't played a majority of the season. Alex Caruso is back, which is huge. And DeMar DeRozan's been awesome all year. Vucevic has been steady. But I don't know. I mean, their net rating ended up being negative for the season. Again, what's their stat? I don't think they were like, 1-16 against top playoff teams, and Milwaukee included in that bunch. Like, I'm just hard pressed to find any single metric that goes Chicago's way here.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, like said, we're kind of like not too intrigued by this one because we think that's going to how it goes. But we also felt like that was going to be kind of how it went, whether they went up against Philly or Boston or Milwaukee. Like we didn't really feel like the Chicago Bulls had it because of injuries, and it sucks that it's that way. But the fans and the team should still be excited that they got here. They just got plagued by injuries.
Yeah, like look, Levine and DeRozan could go crazy. Like there are ways that I could see them winning a game. I
Mhm.
just think, and I don't think you should be disappointed. It's a good step. It's Chicago need to get back in the playoffs. It looked like it was something that you can build on. And again, you hope you get healthy next year. You
Yep.
draft well, and you can continue to run it back. Like they look like they're on the market again. Like Chicago Bulls have been a big market team that it just hasn't felt like it in the past couple of
Mhm.
years at times. And now it feels like they're here to play again.
Mhm.
The last one, of course, is Sixers in Toronto, which we all thought that the Sixers were going to win the first game by 20 points by dominating in transition and on the offensive boards. Like that's exactly what everybody drew up before the series. I put it this way: I think that was an aberration. I don't think that's going to happen again. I think these are going to be a lot more tightly contested. I think the Sixers had pretty much everything that could go right happen in the first game. And give them credit. Tyrese Maxey just went
Maxey,
out
dude.
and had the game of his life. I mean, you want to talk about, he's really, as much as going to get Harden was important, his emergence is the big reason that people believe in them in contenders is that he looks like a star. And
Yep.
that's sure a way to show it yesterday against Toronto. I mean, he showed out. Like when he pulled up and hit that deep three, it was like, oh,
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 we're here.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is different now. Like Tyrese Maxey is ready. He's a big game player. He's got it. Like
If
the kid's got it.
Yeah, and I would say if I feel like the next game is really going to be telling. Like next
Yeah.
game, I feel like if the Sixers get it pretty handily, then that's it. Just because that's kind of like, well, if we do it twice, all right, I'm on board. I believe you. And there's a lot of, I thought maybe you and I were going to be in the minority here thinking that the Sixers were going to get waxed, but it really feels like most people thought or think that Toronto was going to do it.
Well,
And maybe game one kind of silences that a little bit.
yeah, here's the thing. Like Toronto was horrible defensively
Mhm.
yesterday. I don't think they're going to be that bad defensively for
But
the rest of the series.
but
Like
I
I
will
do
say a big thing is wherever Scotty Barnes injury wise ends
yeah.
up here. Like
Now
that's
that
going to be a big part of it.
of course. So Scotty Barnes, of course, got helped off the court. Like just Joel Embiid was making a move. He stepped on his
Stepped
leg.
on
His
him.
ankle turned. It looked really bad. I
Yeah.
think the best thing for them is that obviously the X-rays came back negative, which is
Mhm.
great news. That it's not broken or anything like that. If you're the Raptors, I think you have to hold your head on the fact that like Embiid was 5 of 15. He only had 19 points. Like Harden hit a couple of big shots with the three. They did a really good job at containing Harden in the paint. It was good to see Harden's jumper falling. But again, only 6 of 17 from the field. Danny Green was 1 of 6. He missed a number of open looks, but give credit to Maxey and give credit to Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris, much maligned. He looked confident and ready yesterday. 26 points. He looked sharp off the bounce. He was pulling the trigger on the three-pointer when he was
Mhm.
open. Like there was no hesitation. That was good for him to see them step up like that. Like again, I think it's going to come back down to earth. I think the Sixers had every jumper fall yesterday. I think the Raptors were just absolutely horrible on defense. I think the concerns for the Raptors, of course, going forward, because they got into foul trouble as well.
Yep.
Wow.
Van
Van
Vliet.
Vliet fouled out. Say that 4 times
Yeah.
fast.
Van
Boucher
Vliet
was in
fouled
foul
out.
trouble as well. Um, yeah, I think Toronto will adjust. I don't think Nick Nurse is too good of a coach. Toronto was too good down the stretch for them not to adjust.
Right.
Pascal Siakam looked really good. A lot of Toronto's jumpers were falling yesterday too, so I think you can hang your head on that. They shot 40% from three. They shot 48% overall. It's not even really like they're that bad. The concerns as well are with Thad Young too, obviously with the finger injury.
Mhm.
Don't know what his status is, but talk about your depth with your bigs going away against Joel Embiid of all guys. If you don't have
Right.
Scotty Barnes, if you don't have Thaddeus Young, that certainly makes that a situation where the Sixers could punish that matchup really fast. Gary Trent Jr. just couldn't hit the broadside of a barn yesterday either. I think that he gets going a little bit more here. But the most important thing for the Sixers, holy crap, the Sixers Twitter bullying worked. They played Paul Reed off the bench.
They
They didn't
did.
play DeAndre Jordan.
Every chanting.
The Sixers went +4 in minutes when Joel Embiid was off the floor. And more importantly, I think the best thing to see if you're Harden is that when the Raptors got this close again in the third, it was down to an 11-point game, and you could start to hear the tenseness with the crowd going. Harden hit those 2 big shots and then got Maxey in a position to hit that 3 ball. And that's when it was just like, okay, it kind of sucked the life out of the Raptors and brought it back.
And that's the biggest thing too, like you were just saying, when Embiid's off the court, like managing those minutes is how you will win or lose these games.
Period.
And it's not a lot, but it is enough that if you can manage those minutes, then you're good. And they did it that game. So we'll see if we can continue.
As much as we've been harping on Doc Rivers, I love the rotation yesterday. It's got to be Tobias Harris, Danny Green, Embiid, Maxey, Harden, Yang, Paul Reed, Tybal, and then Shake Milton. Those to me are the guys you got. Maybe you put Korkmaz in instead of Milton if you just need a little bit more shooting punch. But yeah, I think that's the rotation that they got to go with if they're going to maximize their window to win anything.
Yep.
Thank you everybody for listening to this episode of Drive Dish NBA podcast. Appreciate you guys as always. We're going to have a midweek episode back for you guys here with some Top Shot pack rips. So stay tuned for that coming later in the week. Of course, we'll be having more first round action thoughts as well. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We will read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, anywhere else you can find a podcast, you can find us. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the promo code DISHERS. Bet $5 on any team to win, and you get $150 in free bets.
Yep. Free app in your app store, so you can find that. And obviously find us on YouTube for those pack rip midweek episodes. We'll put a little bit of a video element to it. So if you want to watch along there or see the moments and all that stuff, or you're into Top Shot too, you can check it out there. Be follower number, I think it is 36.
All right. Marcus Smart. Still up for grabs. Potential defensive player of the year. I think Rasheed Wallace was 36 too. We've been saying that. So good 2 combo there.